What's going on, guys, and welcome to today's video. And today we are going to be installing our rear brake cooling ducts here on our 6th gen ZL1 1LE Camaro. Now, the 6th gen ZL1 1LE, or any 6th gen for that matter, never had any rear brake ducts. In a previous video, we talked about installing the front Cadillac Blackwing brake ducts on there. I could throw a link to that video up here and down in the description. And then today we are going to be installing the rear brake ducts. Now these are, again, a factory Cadillac Blackwing part that would come in or with a Blackwing CT5 Blackwing Cadillac. But since they are on the same chassis as the Camaro, we are going to be, again, throwing these on the back of this car in preps for our upcoming track day in a few days. So these are kind of a bolt-on, but kind of require a little bit of modification. If you are a 2020 and up Camaro 6th gen, these will already have the holes in the rear toe link that they will basically just bolt right on. If you are a 2016 through 19, you will either need to replace the rear arms or just drill a couple of holes in them and throw these on. So that's what we're going to be doing today, is drilling a couple of holes in the rear toe link. I believe it's the toe link, unless the toe link's on the back side. We'll see once we're under there. And then we've got to do a little bit of cutting on the brake backing plate. And what I found out on the other side of the car, which I already got taken care of, is I had to do a little bit of trimming on the actual brake duct itself. The wheel and tire had some clearance issues. I don't know if that's because the ZL1 1LE runs such a wide back rear wheel that it comes into play, or what, but something to be mindful of on your Camaro if you are throwing these on. So I'm going to get this wheel off, and then we will get the camera down here and I will show you what we need to do to get some rear brake cooling. All right, guys, so now that we've got the wheel off, this is our lower link that the brake duct is going to bolt to. So it will end up sitting right here like that. Now here is the part number for the deflector kit. Yes, I know it says deflector front, but it is very much rear. The 85 52 36 90. Now it will come with a left and right brake duct. The left and right brake duct spacer. And then it does come with all of the hardware, the 6 nuts and 6 bolts, so you can bolt on both sides. And last but not least, it does come with the instructions for the Blackwing Cadillac, and it is instructions for the front and rear, so you can kind of follow along on the second half of the instructions, so you can see kind of what you're doing. First thing we do need to do is get the brake caliper and rotor out of the way, because we are going to need to cut the brake backing plate and again have a little bit better access to this lower arm. Now it is just a couple of 18mm bolts on the back side, and then we've got a T30 Torx here on the brake rotor retainer. And guys, now we can see a lot better of our lower arm here that is going to be accepting that brake duct. Now, like I said, if your car is a 2020 and up, you're already going to have 3 holes in here that perfectly match up with the brake duct. You'll just be able to bolt the thing on and be done. Any of the other cars, you're going to either need to replace this arm, which isn't too bad, or just take a drill and mark and drill your 3 holes. All right, so once you are happy with your placement, I'm just trying to watch the cradle up here, and you're trying to kind of be mindful of the spacing there. There is some pictures online. I can throw that in here of where the factory placement is, so you can kind of gauge where to put this thing. But like I said, once you are happy with your placement, go ahead and scribe some holes. And again, once you've got those holes marked, you are ready to start drilling into your control arms. Okay guys, so now that you've got your holes drilled, we are ready to stack the little spacer here on the back. And it does only fit one way. This way the holes don't line up. So again, it is marked with a little R for right. And then the deflector is marked also with left and right. So we will get our bolt through, and then there is a little nut on the back side. Again, here's your little 8mm bolt and an 8mm nut. All right guys, so just like that, we've got our brake duct mounted. Now guys, on the Cadillacs, they have a different parking brake setup than the Camaro, so this is all a little bit different, again, on the Cadillacs that this is supposed to be on. The Cadillacs, you just unbolt some of the rear brake dust shield for track use and you go on your way. The Camaro has a integral parking brake into the rotor hat. So our brake backing plate cannot just be removed because it is what holds the parking brake shoes. So we are going to need to do a little bit of trimming to make more of a efficient use of our brake ducts. Now guys, as you can see, we've got the air that's going to be scooped off of the track, shoved kind of behind the caliper, but in this case, it is going to just run directly into that brake backing plate, basically making that duct useless. So what I did on the other side was cut a chunk of the backing plate off of the brakes. Now it is just a little sliver here, basically just making it in line with this. If we were to draw an imaginary line straight down from here, basically coming right here, and again, that's roughly what we've got here. Now all that's allowing air to do is shoot from here and get into the back of the rotor area and kind of shoot back into the rotor vanes on the back side of that rotor. So again, there isn't too much science to this here. You could either probably use some tin snips and snip that backing plate. I happen to have a cutoff wheel here, so I'm going to do my cuts again like I did on the other side, that little pie-shaped piece out straight in line with that uppercut section, and then we will continue on. All right, so you guys can now see with this little cut, just like that. So before, here was our backing plate, and now you can see we are directly able to shoot air into the back of the rotor, into that kind of hub area. And now if we look on the back side of the rotor, we've got our vanes here that we are going to actively be shooting air into now. So we're gonna dab a little bit of paint here on the bare metal backing plate. We're just gonna throw some spray paint into the lid. And just dab some on here with an old piece of cloth. So now that we've got our paint here on the bare metal on the backing plate, we are ready to set our brake rotor back on. Throw our brake rotor screw back in. And last but not least, our brake caliper. Now I'm sure there are torque specs for the caliper bolts, but I don't know them offhand, so we're just going to get them good and tight so we have a good day on track. Now guys, one last thing that you're going to need to watch for is the lower clearance here of the brake duct to your wheels. Where I've got these mounted, I ended up having to cut a decent little chunk here off of the inside of this brake duct, basically making this factory notch here larger or more inward for my wide wheels. Now I am just running the factory 12-inch wide rear ZL1 rear wheels, so I don't know if I've got these mounted in just a slightly different spot, or the Cadillac has a narrower wheel that doesn't cause interference issues. That's kind of what I'm assuming without looking up the Blackwing wheel specs. I'd assume a ZL1 has a wider rear tire, and that's what my clearance issues are here. So I'm gonna put the wheel on. It's gonna be next to impossible to have a camera wedged up in there with the wheel on, but just be mindful, when I put it on, set the car down, the inner barrel, inner lip of the wheel was very much buried and touching that, so I needed to trim it. I used a Sharpie to trim, used some metal snips to trim that plastic real quick, and threw that brake duct back on. So again, don't just throw them on, set the car down and go. Very much need to be mindful depending on your wheel and tire package. If you're on 18s, it might even be worse, whatever. But with these factory 19-inch ZL1 wheels, I did have to do some trimming. All right guys, so I can already tell I'm going to run into the same issue here, but it is going to be very hard for you guys to see. So way back here where I'm pointing to, that is the lower edge of that plastic brake duct, and it is almost touching the back wheel. Once we set the car down, it would touch. So again, all I'm doing is taking a Sharpie, marking kind of a rough little inner circle, widening out that groove or that V cut on the factory deflector, pulling it off the car, cutting it, making it a nice cut, throwing it back on. So yes, again, found that out on the other side. And again, maybe if you were mounting it perfectly where the factory location was, you wouldn't have an issue, but it is hard for me to believe on a ZL1 1LE that you wouldn't have that issue. So guys, here is the extent of the cut. Here is the factory little V that the thing has in it. I marked, you can see that Sharpie mark, that was kind of in line with the wheel and tire, just some snips, and then you've got a much larger opening for the wheel to set into. So guys, for relatively little work, you can have some air blowing at the back brakes. Now, yes, this is definitely going to be less effective than the Cadillac because the Cadillac does not have those parking brake shoes, and it is a lot more open to blow air into that hub brake caliper area. But the fact that a 6th gen Camaro has absolutely nothing for rear brake ducting, to me, anything has to be better, even if it's just kind of blowing it generally at the back of that wheel. Now, have I ever had any brake overheating issues on the tracks that I run? No, absolutely not. So am I putting a part on that I don't really have an issue with? Yes, but when you're on track, cool brakes is never something to not take advantage of. So again, I'm not really going to be able to know if this changed anything because I never had an issue in the first place. But if for 50, 60 bucks I can throw some rear brake ducts on this thing and get more air into that area, absolutely no brainer if you're going to be tracking your 6th gen Camaro. So guys, like I said, I will have the part number down in the description. I'll also have a link to the video showing our front Blackwing brake duct install video, which is even more straightforward. It's literally just swapping out what you currently have or adding if you don't have one currently. It is very much a bolt-on affair for the 6th gen Camaro. So guys, next time we see the car, we will hopefully be in Topeka on track, getting ready to hopefully make some quick lap times. It's going to be mid 80s and hopefully dry. cool-ish weather, and we are on fresh tires front and rear. We've got our brake ducts. I'm very excited to hopefully do some very quick lap times. It's been like a year since I've been on track, so we'll have to get out there, build our confidence back up, and hopefully go fast and have fun. So guys, until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.